Adjustments need to be made.
Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Kane County Finance and Budget Committee,
Bill,
Wednesday, August 28th at 9 a.m. We have roll call, please.
Lewis, Sanchez, Sturgis, Tepe,
Debbie here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Berman,
Irma's here.
an in-person quorum.
Thank you. We have a quorum. I do not have any remote attendance requests. Do you? So therefore, we do not have any. Approval of our minutes from July 24th and July 30th. Do we have a motion to approve?
Leonard asks for unanimous consent for the minutes of July 24th, 2024 and July 30th, 2024.
Any corrections or additions? Then they will be approved by unanimous consent. Public comments. Have Miss Susan Webb Kmek. You speak, please. Is this agenda or not?
It is agenda.
All right.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Susan Webb Kmek. I'm a about 10-year resident of Kane County. Absolutely love it here. I wanted to address the proposed referendum for the tax increase. Our family has said many times, my husband and I, we do things in the community as we enjoy our community. One of the things that we keep saying is, well, there's our tax dollars at work. And, I really, truly believe that. I really appreciate all of the accomplishments that the board has made. But one of the things that I'm really concerned about is the fact that, from what I understand, that we are looking at a very serious budget shortfall of approximately $40 million for 2026. So I'm sorry. So, and with that comes layoffs, comes the inability of the Kane County government to do the work that they have been tasked to do. So I would like to say that, as a resident, a 0.75 or even a 1% sales tax increase is not going to affect my family significantly. I don't think it's going to affect most families significantly. I think what's really going to affect us are the consequences of not doing that. So when we look at layoffs, when we look at the inability of the county to be able to build the buildings that they need to build, it really will impact all of us. I'm very appreciative of the work that the county does through, of course, our health board. Some of the things that I looked at accomplishments, which couldn't be done, of course, without a sound budget. And I understand that you're mandated to have a balanced budget, are things like the solar fields that will save $250,000 a year for 10 years. The gun safety lock program, which is voluntary program to protect against accidental shootings. COVID-19 mass vaccinations, no matter where you stand on COVID-19 or vaccinations in general, that helped to administer tens of thousands of vaccines to the county residents who wanted those. The responsible bidder ordinance, I thought that was very important, that pre-qualifies contractors to ensure quality work and cost savings for the county. And we could go on and on there. I really do appreciate all of the work that all of you put into making this county run smoothly. You always hear it say, it's like sausage. Even if you like it, you don't often want to see it being made. And there's so much that goes on in the background here that I truly don't understand, but I appreciate the opportunity to come to these meetings and get to learn more about what you all do. And I do appreciate all the work that you put into making our county run smoothly. And I do also believe that this referendum, obviously this is something that the taxpayers have to agree on, but I agree that this referendum is something that it's past time that it happens. So I appreciate your listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Vicki Davidson Bell.
Good morning.
I'm on the agenda and my comments will be very brief. I appreciate the work of the board. I've been coming here for a number of months and I appreciate the level of discussion that you all have put into making your decisions, working for the people of King County. It is paramount that we maintain a balanced budget. And it's also paramount that we build up our financial reserves. Our reserves are declining, and that does not work in the best interest of the Kane County citizens. We need to make sure that we've got reserves to work with if there should be an emergency or urgent situation coming up in the future. The county already operates on a shoestring budget. We need to maintain services. As Susan had said previously, we want to avoid layoffs. We need to have people who can provide the services people need. I do support the referendum for the sales tax for public safety purposes. Let's let the citizens, the people of King County, make that decision on the sales tax. I support it going forward to be put on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. William Cole.
Good morning, Commissioners, and just for clarity's sake, it's William Kale. Like
Dale,
vegetable.
thank you.
Doesn't come up often enough. Thank you very much. And I just want to thank everyone for participating and let us come here and speak. I too am speaking in support of the tax referendum. Just to let you know that when many people discuss and read this item and the importance of what it is, how we need to support our government, everyone I've talked to and hear about seem to think this is really a very good idea. So I'm not going to belabor the point. We're just piling on at this point. We are very much in favor of this. We think it's been long overdue, desperately needed, and we hope it'll be successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's the extent of the speakers that have signed up. Moving on. Item 7, Treasury Report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chair, we have a very full agenda this morning. I'd like to move that we ask the treasurer to either keep it short or that we just put his reports on file. So I'll move that we put reports on file.
Do we have a second to that?
Second,
Second? No second?
to put the
Aye.
reports on file.
Were you seconding that?
No.
Seconding
Still want to
to put
report.
the reports on file.
No,
I'm not seconding to put the reports on file.
you want no report or just reports put on?
I
file?
was seconding to put reports on file. I'm sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
hear the motion
Okay.
then.
Okay, well. Okay.
Discussion of that.
But what was the motion then? I'm confused.
The motion is to have the report
Put on file.
put on file.
Without any report from the treasurer.
I would like to report. Let me just say that, and you can do whatever you'd like.
Well, we have a motion.
Sorry, there's a motion to place the report on file, which is typically done at the end, but can be done at any point.
So the motion is to place the reports on file at this time.
But-
Any other discussion?
The treasurer's report.
Treasury report.
Does this also include excluding the treasurer from making a physical report here?
Yes,
Well, it's in the written report, I believe.
I'm
On
sorry,
our agenda.
I'm sorry, I
The
didn't,
treasurer's here. This would not allow the treasurer to give an actual presentation here.
is your presentation long? Because we got a long meeting.
I know you do.
Can you do it like in 2 seconds?
Not in 2 seconds, but it's brief and to the point.
Can it just be about the numbers and not all the other stuff you put in so we can just get it going?
What's the other things?
Okay.
Yes, I get the sense of what's being said. It's political season.
I don't want any part of this.
I would like. So the question is.
Discussion?
A second.
I'd love to hear Mr. Ross.
well, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
don't think there was a second.
No, I seconded, but I'm going to remove my second.
Very good.
I don't know what's going on here and I don't,
We don't have a second motion tonight.
it better be short though. If you start going long, I'm going to stop you.
You
All right.
betcha.
So we have a treasury report, Mr. Lawson.
Seriously.
Well, anytime people bring me money in counting in millions of dollars, I don't treat them that way. But so I have good news and bad news. If you turn to page 5 of the report, thank you, Blair. Okay, page 5, good news, bad news. Bad news is that from this time last year, we're $20 million down. At 5% interest on $20 million, that means we'll lose $1 million that you can spend in your budget next year and every year that we don't have that 20 million in place. However, the good news is that we have less invested. However, we're making more on it. And so there's more interest. So we made $300,000 more, $300,000 more, that 1.695, the far right column, bottom number, that 1.695 is approximately $300,000 more than that number was in last year's budget or in last year's report, same report, same month, same report. So that's the good news. If you go to page 7, that is a picture worth 1,000 words. That is our performance on your behalf for this up to this point. Next slide is number 8. Whatever you want, but I respect what Ms. Juby, I'm not used to bringing millions of dollars and being abbreviated. Sorry. It's just a lousy way to treat human beings. I have this fellow walking around so Vernon, I have this guy walking around this building. I have 14 staff members who are petrified that they might be accosted by this person. If this is not spooky, you should be ashamed of yourself to limit. What are you afraid to hear? So that's it. Actually, millions of dollars. I had some really good, important news to share. I'll withdraw my report.
I just asked to ask a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, Chris, we just had a nice member of the audience speak a minute ago and discussing reserve amounts. It is my understanding from Kathy that we have too much in reserve by some standard and that we should be reducing that at some scheduled to get there. You have made statements that we're doing quite well with our investments because of changes that you've made in the structure and how we invest. The impact of bringing down those reserves, is that what you're just reporting on now on what, I mean, I just want to make sure that so many times we get lost in the forest within the trees, if you will, that, I mean, there's cheerleaders like myself on the sideline saying, yay, go get that interest money. But if you don't have the principal in the account anymore, it's not going to be there, and that needs to be factored into future years as well. And I'm just making sure that we're all cognizant of that as we, and with that statement, it's a bridge to nowhere. I just wanted to make the statement. So.
Okay. The statement, I understand the thrust of the question is, if we don't have as much in the bank, will we be able to earn as much interest? The answer is, of course, we cannot. You're certainly right. To put a context, you need rules of thumb at a board level. You have so many things coming at you. You have to have rules of thumb. Rule of thumb is for every $20 million that you reduce what's in the bank, you have $1 million less to spend when the interest rates are at 5 million. I have a report on one of the next pages that makes it clear that now we have about 5% interest going out in a portion of our portfolio for the next 3 to 4 years. And if you want, I'll go ahead and show that part of the report. But to answer your question, every $20 million down, and it's a board decision what you do with your reserves. Every $20 million costs you $1 million to spend in future years.
Thank you.
Any other comments, discussion?
Okay, you know what? I mean, we work very hard on these reports. And so could you put page 8 back up, please? We're now clearly outperforming benchmarks. The Carolina Blue, the top line, is our short-term on-demand accounts. The two lines underneath that are the Illinois Fund, that's the treasurer's account at State of Illinois in Springfield, and then the 90-day T-bills, we're now performing over that with your money. The green line is the long-term, that's the demand, that's short-term money, and the investment, the longer-term money. That is exceeding the one-year T-bills, that's the bottom line. The most important observation in this month's report is on the next slide, number 9. It'll be the last one that I need to present. And if I don't present at Finance Committee, I don't know when I get a chance to present. But if you take a look at the middle and the bottom, those are the two investment managers of our long-term money, Vectors and PFMAM. Those two are combined into the top portion. Interesting part of Vectors and PFMAM is just above the total mortgage-backed securities. So if you go into the middle box, the last row is mortgage-backed security. Then you go over to about the fourth from the right column. It shows that about 37% of our money is in mortgage-backed securities. And if you go over to the second to the last column to the right, it's showing that it's at 5.42% interest, 5.42. But the most important number on that row is the far right hand that shows 3.41%. So that means that the duration of those investments, generally speaking, are about 3.5 years. So when you say how long is that going to be, at least that portion of the portfolio is going to be earning that money, as long as we maintain that cash in the bank. Comparison with the other investment manager, same row, last line before the totals, about 26% of what PFMAM is investing, 26% is mortgage-backed security. And then they're earning about 4.7%, and the duration on that is 2.73. That, to me, that's very good news. And it's very important as you're going through the process of budgeting, not only for this year, but for future years. So that's what I had.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Audit report, Ms. Wegman.
Good morning. My report is on file, but I can answer any questions.
Any questions of our auditor? Very much. We have a resolution approving the July 2024 claims paid, $33,596,970.65. Do we have a motion to approve it?
Deputy moves.
Deputy
Dewey seconds.
Juby, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Dewey, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Yes.
Passes.
Next item is item 9, our finance director's report. Ms. Hopkinson.
Thank you. The monthly finance director's report, I think I'll just focus on the third page of the report. If you could go 2 pages up from here. That one, yeah. Just the monthly report on the state of the general fund. So if you look in the far right columns, the ones in green, what is our adopted budget? What are the revenues and expenses that would be expected at this point in the fiscal year? And what is the actual at this point in the fiscal year and the difference? So some variances to pay attention to, other taxes, which are our sales taxes, our RTA sales taxes, income taxes, personal property replacement taxes, they're down a little bit compared to what we had budgeted and expected at this time of year. Fines, which are collected across a variety of offices, are also down. Interest revenue is down, but that is probably because I think we've only, staff has only posted through, I think, May. We haven't posted the last couple months. We have to do that. If you look down towards the bottom where it says fund balance utilization in the column that says actual. So at this point in the fiscal year, we are using 17.39 million of fund balance to pay for expenses, and we will continue to monitor that. The only other thing I wanted to highlight in the monthly report is that we went out for RFP to select an audit firm. We made a selection. The contracts are being reviewed, or the contract is being reviewed by the state's attorney's office. So we hope to bring a resolution next month to have an audit firm for the next 5 years. Does anyone have any questions?
Debbie?
Approximately what is the fund balance now for our reserves?
In the general funds? So I'll talk about it this way. So at the end of 2023, we had 87 million. You could say that as of right now, it's 87 million less 17 million because we're using up our fund balance to pay for expenses because we're not bringing in enough revenues. For our 2024 budget for the general fund, we budgeted to use about 10 million.
I'm on a meeting right now. I'm on a meeting.
We budgeted to use $10 million in reserves. This use of reserves should go down with the property tax, the second installment that's coming in this month in September, because we only get the property tax revenue twice during the year. It's not like a steady stream where you're getting monthly, the sales taxes we get monthly, the income taxes we get almost every month. So once we get that second installment of property tax revenue in September, that use of fund balance should go down.
Okay, thanks.
Should go down.
It should. I hope it should. Yeah.
I mean, aren't we anticipating a certain amount of money from that?
Yeah, because our budget for the general fund for property tax revenue for 2024 is 33 million. So far we've received 18.7 million.
So then we're looking at another 15 million roughly.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's pretty safe to assume.
Yeah. Yeah. That should come in. I mean, more or less, it won't be exact on the dollar, but.
Ms. Juby?
So, when we we end in 2023 at 87 million in reserves, does that still stick that would be 66,961,865 for the excess reserves?
Can you say that number?
Okay, so when you said it was safe to say we had 87 million in reserves at the end of 2023. Or at the end of 2023. So how does that affect this reserve in excess of 90 days that you have on your last handout your general fund last handout. So I'm assuming that that reserve in excess of 90 days in 2022 was the 66,961,865, right?
Okay, yes, yes.
Okay, so then if we have that, doesn't the 2023 excess reserve, isn't it not 55,895,079, but actually 61,461,865? Because this number shows that we used $11 million in reserves and we actually only used 5.5 million in reserves.
Which 11 million are you talking about?
Well, if you go, I'm sorry, because it's the thing that we had at our last finance meeting. If you go from your reserves in excess of 90 days for 2022, you have 66,000 or 66,961,865. And then in column 23, you have 55,895 and change, which is a difference of about $11 million. But we didn't use $11 million. We used 5.5 million.
No, between 2022 and 2023, our general fund reserves went from 98 million to 87 million, a drop of about 11 million.
Okay, and so how is that if we didn't use that much in reserves? Why did it drop like that?
We used 11 million in reserves. About 7 million of it roughly was towards the election equipment and about 5 million of it was operating expenses.
So I'm confused because I thought we had a report that we actually used 5.5 million.
It was 5 million of what I would call general operating expenses and then 7 million in capital. But the total, if you look at our audit report, our general fund reserves for the general fund went from 98 million to 87 million from 11/30/2022 to 11/30/2023, a drop of 11 million.
So how much do we have in our capital fund budget then?
The Fund 500 capital fund?
I don't know, the one you just talked about where we took money.
Well,
from the
we purchased the election equipment out of the general fund. We did not buy it out of the capital projects fund.
So how much do we have in the capital projects fund?
As of today, probably close to $20 million, I want to say.
Okay, and that doesn't count as reserve in excess?
The capital projects fund is not part of the general fund. It's a separate fund. It's a special revenue fund.
So that's just sitting there, waiting for us to have.
Well, that's part of the
projects.
5-year capital projects plan,
Okay,
which they had, for this year, for 2024, they had planned to do a lot of projects, which now subsequently in the last few months, they've identified that ARPA can fund a lot of those HVAC projects. So a lot of, probably about 17 million of the projects that were going to be paid for out of the capital projects fund are going to now be paid for out of ARPA.
okay. Thank you. It's going to take a while to digest this. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Leonard.
Yes, Kathy, I've asked on numerous occasions for the collective bargaining agreements, the increases over the years. And you did supply me with the percentage for those different collective bargaining agreements. Maybe I did not specify what I was looking for. What I'm really looking for is a spreadsheet of each and every employee in each and every department that received raises in the collective bargaining agreements for the last 2 years and for 25. I think the dollar amounts are going to be different than what are projected. And since we've had some other numbers that weren't accurate, I need that in order to make sure we're specific and accurate on those numbers.
You did send me an email, I want to say 3-4 weeks ago, specifically requesting the dollar increases for both union and non-union employees. I did supply you and the entire board with 2 spreadsheets, one showing non-union salaries by department and one showing union salaries by department showing actual salary amounts for the last several years and then projected. And then I did a calculation that showed which departments made up most of the salary increases for both non-union and union. I don't believe that that specific email asked to have that list by employee, but we can certainly try to pull that together.
That'd be great. You know, obviously, I don't need names or anything. I just want the individual employees so we can take a look at the actual dollar amount increase from the collective bargaining agreements. And that would be very helpful. When could you get that to me?
That will probably take a while.
What's-
It's not as easy as pushing a button. We don't have a report, that would probably take several weeks to have employee by employee, because we have reports that produce information by employee, and we have reports that produce information by position, and we have employees changing position titles. So if you wanted to track a employee, and they changed positions, it would be,
That'd be fun.
yeah, it would be a big report. We do have what we could do, we do by law have to post every year on our county website, the salaries, the compensation and benefits for all county employees. We could try to take those reports and just do a comparison. That would probably be an easier way of doing that.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, what I was looking at was the last day of the fiscal year, 11/30, say 22, and then 12/1/22, the new fiscal year for 23, and then the same for 23 and 24, and projected for 25.
Yeah, it's, again, I don't want to be up here and talk about the complications of technology and data, but we have employees that get raises throughout the year. It's not all on the same date. So when you run reports and you say, give it to me as of a date, a change on a particular date, it may not pick up a change in the middle of the year. I think the easiest way is if you just wanted to compare salary information by employee rather than position. And we can probably get those two reports and get IT to do a comparison of all those compensation reports that we post on our website for the public anyway. That's probably the easiest way
Okay, that would
to
be
get that
great.
information.
Thank you.
Bill, Kathy, could we start with resending the email you had referenced?
Sure.
Yeah, 'cause I do remember that, and I don't remember diving into it to the degree that I should have. And now trying to find that again, if you could just hit send out to everybody, that would be a great start. And Bill, this will be out of sequence, but item 10B under new business for us, to me is going to tie in today to this same
Yes.
conversation. So I can wait till then, or I can discuss it now, but I mean, I haven't, I'll have an issue with 10B without having some comparison to say, how are we treating our non-union compared to what was passed that we're unaware of. I don't want to do that. I don't want to take that action without being able to review the two. Because I get a little confused between an internal study, an external study, negotiated union stuff, what raises went up, okay, now we have to do a general lift and then, okay, but is this one arbitrary? Well, it shouldn't be arbitrary, it should be comparative to union versus non. I just don't have enough data to, and I think because we've dealt with it in the past, I'm just not prepared for this today, but this was an appropriate time to jump in on this, just for what it's worth.
We can wait, discuss.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm not exactly sure what Mr. Leonard is asking for, but I have some same concerns and questions in that area. In particular, I know that the sheriff's office just, concluded some negotiations which required some retroactive pay. Okay, so I know, and I believe we still have a couple of union negotiations that are still underway. And those negotiations and the conclusion of those tremendously impacted the sheriff's budget, particularly since it was retroactive. So we're going to get hit. We're going to hit with more pay increases associated with union, large part of it due to inflation, but that's going to put pressure on us with our employees too. So I'd like to have a conversation with you to understand what it is, why you want that, and so that I can better support you.
Julie,
I am so sorry. This takes me a while. I don't mean to go back to the 2023 closeout, but your number was 55,895 and $79. So if I subtract the 90-day reserve from 2024, because I'm assuming that means that's what our excess reserves started out in 2024, correct? If we closed out with excess reserves in 23, then that's what we start 2024 in, right?
Correct.
So if I subtract out the 36.9 million, I don't get 39 million. I get 49,814,687. So what am I missing? Like what else is coming out of that didn't come out of the other? So that's a $10 million difference. So what am I not subtracting out of there that I should be?
I don't have that sheet in front of me, so.
Okay.
Can I? take a
Yeah,
look at it?
yeah. I just don't know what I'm not doing. So if I take this number that you said we started from, and I take out this, I don't get this number. I get, so how am I doing it then?
So the reserves in excess is a function of the difference between the reserves, which is here, and the reserve target.
May I have the answer to the question?
Oh, it's
You restate the question?
the reserves in excess of the target are the difference between the total reserves and the 90-day reserve target. And that will give you your reserves in excess.
Then where's the 87 million? Because I have 86 million on here. So if you said we ended at 87 million, then that throws us $1 million off.
I'm not sure. Probably rounding on the 87 million. I don't have our audit report right in front of me.
Okay, thank
but
you.
Yeah, I'm probably just rounding.
Julie, did you get your answer?
Yes.
Yes and no?
That's a.
We can go offline.
That's it?
Uh,
Any questions?
Anyone has any other questions?
Can I just ask a quick one, as long as we're talking about the budget? Is the non-union cost of living wage increase included in this budget?
Yes.
Okay,
And we have a resolution today.
right, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was in there. And then can I ask another question really quick? Why, I sent you an email. Why are we budgeting for a level sales tax, a level property tax? Are we not anticipating any new growth? We're not anticipating any changes in the EAV?
For the sales tax piece, or are you just asking property tax?
Well, both, because you've
for the sales tax, our sales taxes have been down compared to budget and forecast right now. So that is why I budgeted flat
on the sales tax.
On the sales tax. We probably budgeted too high this year. And indications are that, sales taxes are going to remain flat. So that's why I did that on that. On personal property replacement tax, as I indicated, the state overpaid everybody in the state a couple years ago. And that is why we're budgeting lower, and they have it posted on the Illinois Department of Revenue website that they erred in paying out personal property replacement taxes, which is why we're budgeting lower for that.
Property taxes?
The
though?
property taxes, we are budgeting at 0%.
Why?
Um,
We're not
I-
getting any new growth in
At
King
the
County?
last meeting, at various finance committee meetings, we've talked about what property taxes would look like at 3.4% and what property taxes would look like at 0%. If the finance committee would like to make a recommendation to increase property taxes, we can build that into the budget, no problem.
I thought we captured new growth though. So
We do capture,
if we
at
capture new growth-
0%, we'll capture new growth of about $650,000. We had that on the slide at the special county, at the special meeting last Monday.
Okay, and then last question, I promise. When the state of Illinois closes out its sales tax, it obviously doesn't fall within the same year that we have because we close out in November, they close out in December. So that money then, that surprise money that we get because of November, December sales, where does that show up?
So we get sales tax from the state every month. It doesn't come once a year. It's 2 months behind. So if you go shopping today in August, and the retailer collects that tax, the retailer has until the end of the following month, so the end of September, to pay it into the state, and then the state turns it over to the recipient municipalities and counties the following month. So if you go shopping today, the county will collect that, we will receive in cash that sales tax in October. So we're always, and a lot of the graphs and charts that I put together, I believe I have that right in the explanation that we receive the money 2 months after the fact.
So when we made our 2025 budget, we included what we anticipated for November and December, or because November wouldn't come until January, December would come in February. So we included that
We've
Christmas bump in our,
always got 12 months of revenue every year
right.
of sales tax revenue.
But if we project that we're getting a certain amount and then we get more in November and December because it's the holiday season, where does that money show up the following year? Does that go into our reserves? Do we budget for that? Where does that go?
So for purposes of GAAP, so the money that is collected in November and that the county will receive in January is booked to our November for audit year-end purposes. We accrue it. So the sales tax revenue that we, when we do our annual audit report on the accrual basis of accounting, because we're doing cash basis of accounting throughout the year until the end of the year, and then we do accrual-based accounting. So at the end of the year, we use the modified accrual basis for our fund financials and the full accrual basis for our countywide financials. So on the we accrue the sales tax revenue that will match up when it was collected. So for the fiscal year 2024, the sales tax revenue that will be in our audit will be sales taxes collected from December 1st, 2023 to November 30th, 2024. We adjust for that, for when it's collected.
So then the projection for December is higher.
Next year will be in next year's budget.
Okay. Thank you.
If you go, Blair, I don't know if you still have my report up. I have that one page with, I think it's page 5, where I have other taxes. It's a graph. It's 2 graphs on the same page.
Page 4, 155.
Yeah, page 1. Yeah, page 156, the next page. So I call it, I'm sure you've heard me use this phrase, the heartbeat. If you look at the top, red and blue, that's the sales tax and the RTA sales tax. They're both sales taxes. The lines pretty much follow each other. And yes, it is a heartbeat because sales do go up at Christmas time and then they come down. So you can see it. You can see human behavior right there in the chart.
Mr. Leonard,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kathy, one other question about the chart that you have on page 155, number 4 of your presentation, which shows the different tax revenues. On the state income, or on the state income tax prior year, which is 23, we had 6.8 million in revenues coming in. Our expected revenue or projected that we had for this year was 7.993. The actual is 7.4. Is that year to date or is that?
That's year to date.
Okay, so we still have September, October, and November to come.
Right. But the expected revenue is not the total for the whole year. That's expected as of this point in the year. So we should, at this point in the fiscal year, we should be expecting to receive 7.9. So we're actually behind.
Okay, so that's really year to date, not for the year.
Right. That's why I'm using the term expected revenue rather than like annual budget.
And then for the actual, you're showing year to date where we're at.
Right.
Why is the state income tax down? I mean, do we have less employees? Are they getting paid less? That makes no sense.
That's, I don't have the answer to that question. That's a state. I mean, the income tax is collected across the state of Illinois by the state. That's not a county tax.
But employment isn't down and wages haven't gone down. So I don't understand why our state income tax revenue is down.
I can look at some of the state of Illinois websites, their economic and fiscal commission reports. Let me look into that and see if they have any insight into why that revenue is down.
Kathy,
Thank you. Kathy, on this same page, 155, like sales tax, for example, that's the total sales tax. That's not the amount that goes into the general fund, right?
So we have two different types of sales taxes. There is the state sales tax. All of that revenue goes into the general fund.
Okay.
Then we have the RTA sales tax. The RTA sales tax goes into 4 different funds across the county. The numbers on this chart reflect the total of all RTA sales taxes, but the RTA sales tax go into 10% goes into the general fund, 75% goes into KDOT's fund, transportation sales tax fund, and then the remainder goes into 2 smaller special revenue funds that are used for public safety and judicial technology and sheriff vehicle purchases.
Thanks.
any other questions of Ms. Hopkinson? Thank you. I'm sure we'll be having more discussion as we go on. New business. A resolution adopting requests for county offices and departments for proposed reduction in the preparation of the fiscal year 2025 county budget.
Leonard will move.
Surges seconds.
Leonard, Surges, discussion.
What page is that? Blair, what page is that?
Yes. Yeah.
334.
24?
334.
334.
I think it's 334.
334.
Okay. I will have questions. Just give me a
Yes,
minute.
Ms. Hopkinson.
As I mentioned, we have a couple of edits to 2 of the numbers because subsequent to last Monday's meeting, the Information Technologies Department came to us and moved an employee out of the general fund into one of the special revenue funds. It's a small change, but it is a change. So it will change the amount of savings from $554,339 to $639,339. And then that will also change the total amount of reserves that are needed from 19,445 to 19,269. So we need to make those edits.
We should amend it then.
We need amendment then to the,
Yeah, I move that the resolution be amended as per Kathy's instructions and that we pass the amended numbers on to the executive committee.
a second.
I'll second the amendment that we change the numbers.
Yeah, I can read those numbers again if you'd like. So in the fourth paragraph where it says, whereas the finance committee recommends, instead of the 19,445,661, it should be 19,269,183. So that's 19269,183. The next two paragraphs remain the same, and then the seventh paragraph, where it says that the budget should be reduced by 554,339. The new number is 639,339. So 639,339.
Do we have any more discussion?
This is on the motion to change the
The amendment.
number, the amendment.
Amendment.
Okay, I have no questions on the amendment.
You can do a voice vote on this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion amendment carries. We're now discussing the,
Can I make a comment then on the actual resolution? So I said it before and I say it again, I'm just not comfortable with the 4 million out of the RTA sales shift. I was not comfortable with the 43 or the 4 million out of the capital until I realized we have $20 million sitting there. So I'm less worried about that, but I am worried about the 4 million for the RTA sales tax, and especially given that that's matching money that's leveraged. So I can't support it if the RTA sales tax switches in here.
any other comments? You don't make an motion to change it.
I think it's important that everybody gets a chance to talk about things before we make motions and then prevent them from being able to talk about it. So if everyone has commented on that, then I'll make a motion, which I'm sure will fail, but I think everyone should have a chance to speak.
Mr. Chairman.
Leonard,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to changing this RTA transportation sales tax revenue or eliminating that from the resolution, my concern is that we would have to take 4,031,000 out of excess reserves to cover this. We're already at over 19 million. What I need to know is how much do we have in excess reserves?
Kathy,
Oh.
do you?
Sorry. So as of right now, as of today, it would be probably around 35 million in excess reserves as of today. Because we ended the fiscal year with $87 million in total reserves. As of today, with our monthly report, we are using $17 million in reserves to fund our general fund. So 87 million less 17 million is 70 million, and we need about roughly 35 million for our target 90-day. So that leaves us with 35 million excess.
So if we're taking 19, we're taking over half of the excess reserves, if that is the correct number.
But we still don't have property taxes figured in that. So what's
Well,
the estimate of where we're going to end, knowing that we're going to be receiving money in that isn't going to require us to take that 17 million out?
My estimate is that somewhere between we're going to use somewhere between 10 and $15 million in reserves by the end of this fiscal year, 11.
So we're only getting 2 million in for property taxes? Because if
We will-
17 million doesn't
Right.
reflect the property taxes and you're estimating we could be up as much as 15
Right, but
million.
this is also only expenses through today. So there's still 3 more months of expenses.
So we still have enough money.
Well, we have enough money to fund whatever we want this year, but what happens next year?
You mean if we don't pass the sales tax?
Mr. Sturgis,
Yeah.
for you.
Do the draconian cuts that we talked about?
Mr. Berman, thank you. My point was just that I am in line with Ms. Juby on this. I think that removing this from this account in that matching scenario that I am not extremely well versed on, but conceptually versed enough that if we don't have the money to commit to the matches, this is just a scenario of kicking the can down the road. And I guess I would rather fight that battle today than be answering to, a resident, my children, whomever, 10 years from now to say, why didn't we do the new bridge? Why didn't we repair that? Why didn't you add the turn lane? Well, because we had a budget crisis 10 years ago and we took that money and we didn't have the match. And if I am inaccurate in that statement in any way, I apologize, but that is my fundamental understanding of this action. And I just wanted to voice that for what it's worth.
Mr. Leonard.
I appreciate that, Mr. Sturgis, and I appreciate what Ms. Juby is proposing too. My concern is, if we don't have enough in reserves next year, we are truly going to have to make personnel cuts. And so by taking another 4 million out of reserves this year, not knowing exactly what we have in excess reserves, puts us in a position where if next year we need another 23 million, we don't have it in excess reserves. And that means we're going to have to cut employees. So I would rather have the transportation department have to suffer a little bit on some projects than to lose maybe 100 people that are employed by the county right now, next year.
Can I just ask one question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So is this on? So this is what I had asked before. Let's just say, in a perfect scenario, a referendum is adopted and there's budgetary monies available. Can we undo this notion? Is there the ability to say, I know we moved money from that road, KDOT, but we'd like to put it back immediately. If that's possible,
Certainly.
I think I'm okay with that. But what I've heard is, once you do that, you can't undo it. So, and I don't know what the truth is there.
That's
So
not true.
Is
No.
that at any time of the year?
I'm sorry, Ms. Lewis is.
Yeah. So let me take a stab at what he said. First of all, if the referendum passes, we're not going to get that money right away. It's going to take a while to get it. So in my opinion, if we take this 4 million out now, it's never coming back. However, and what I was going to say before I allowed Cliff to talk,
you were very kind.
I know, because I like you. I
Wonderful.
respect your opinions. But what I was going to say was, I want to make sure that this is a 1-year thing. And when Mr. Rickert got up and spoke multiple times, he's like, okay, if I know it's getting cut this 1 year, I won't look for matching grant things this year. So I think we need to make sure, and I'm sure he will come forward and Mr. Leonard and I will still be here next year, that we do look at this again and don't automatically continue to take from him. But to shore it up this year, I think we absolutely have to.
I think that's a great point Ms. Lewis makes. It's a 1-year cut and we can put it back in, if we would get the RTA sales tax referendum passed, although we'd still have another year to go before we actually receive that money.
Well, we're on record and stated that. I'm
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
Wait, you had something to say?
I just wanted to know if we could, take that money back.
Microphone, please.
Bates, I just wanted to know if we can take that $4 million back at any time in the middle of the year if some big match comes up. We can? Okay.
We can modify
Yeah.
our budget
anytime.
at any point in time. We do that every year.
Okay.
Right.
But, you know, it all depends on our
What we have,
financial
yeah.
position at the time. So, again, this is what we're really working with, our estimates, our best estimates. Kathy's best.
Yeah, you can, any time of year, you can amend that.
And there's all kinds of things we can't. Any other discussion? But, we've, modified our resolution and corrected it.
Did we vote on the amendment?
Yes, we did.
Okay, good.
So that's been approved. So, I'd like to have a roll call on the resolution.
Juby,
No.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes with 1 no.
Thank you. Moving on to item B, an ordinance authorizing the fiscal year 2025 non-union cost of living wage increase.
Tepe moves.
Debbie moves,
Lewis will second.
Lewis second, discussion. Ms. Hopkinson?
We take this resolution through to the board every year as part of the budget process. So this year, we built 2.5% per the finance committee's recommendations back in February, March. That's what we built into the budget for non-union employees. And I will point out, if you take a careful look at this resolution, it says that non-union, it delineates between non-union employees in elected offices and non-union employees in departments. And how the decisions on how that money is distributed is different because of being an employee in an elected office versus being an employee in a department.
Surges?
And have we motioned for this and we're in discussion?
Yes, we are.
Okay, yeah, you know what, again, I am a solid no vote on this without having more data to compare. In this particular case, I think our non-union people are, my gut feel, without having the data, is that our non-union staff are being woefully undercompensated as compared to our union staff. But without the data, that could be just a really stupid comment. And I would love to have that information now that it's available to make that comparison. I am okay moving this to the board level if we could get that with, before next week. But without that, I would delay this if possible.
Again, this is just a suggestion. I mean, it's something we have to put in the budget. We're saying we're picking 2.25%.
If it's just a suggestion, I change
It's
it
just a
to
suggestion.
4%.
No,
How's that?
it's not in
I
concrete.
suggest 4%. That's my
Well,
amendment.
fine,
Yeah,
that would-
you know what I'm saying? I
It
don't,
just increases the budget that much more.
I know.
Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as Kathy had stated, we can amend
Yeah.
this at any time. So if 2.5 we find isn't fair or good and we want to increase it, we can increase it. We just have to pay for it.
It's just, we got to put something in the budget.
What is the
Understand.
dollar amount?
Pardon me?
What is
Mr.
the
Tepe?
dollar amount? of
That's a
that?
good question.
Mr. Tepe?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to point out that this was the amount that we had given to all of the departments to include in their budget. So none of this is a surprise. And if we had experienced situations where they felt it wasn't enough, I don't recall any department manager coming and saying that this was not enough. So I don't think it's a big issue, and I think we should pass it on.
Very good.
Mr.
Chairman,
I want to know what the dollar amount is
I
on
got it.
this.
Yeah.
What does this come
Wow.
up to?
Yeah, let me just open up that PDF.
Mr. Shepro has some.
Yeah, I should have noticed this earlier. This is an ordinance and therefore replace where it says now therefore be it resolved. It should be now therefore be it ordained. Minor change. And also, this really is not a suggestion, it's an ordinance. So if it passes, it's,
So if you look at the spreadsheet that I had sent out in response to Mr. Leonard's request, and one of the finance department staff should be re-forwarding that to everybody right now. The non-union employee wage increase is 4.3 million from 24 to 2025. That's across all funds. And the union increase is 1.4 million.
It doesn't make sense.
0.4 for the unions, it's a lot less. Are there a lot less?
Leonard?
Yes, Kathy, you said the non-union is 4.3 million increase? And
Yes,
the
from
union-
2024 to 2025.
Yeah, and then the union for 24 to 25 is only 1.3 million?
1.4, but I will say this, for purposes of budgeting, right? It's a budget. We have several union contracts that are going to expire on November 30th, 2024. So for purposes of budgeting, I put a placeholder 2.5% in for those union staff positions as a placeholder so that we would have something in the budget.
And what does that 2.5% placeholder equate to in dollars?
Right, so the total for union employees, and we have 15 different unions. The total that I budgeted, that is budgeted in the budget is 1.4 million for all, and that includes a 2.5% placeholder amount for the unions contracts that are going to expire at November 30th, 2024. Because it's just a budget. I didn't want to put zero because then, because it's not going to be zero. So since 2.5% was being used for everything else, I doubt it would be below 2.5%. So, right, it won't be below 2.5. So I put a 2.5% placeholder.
Mr. Chairman. Bates, please. How many union employees do we have and how many non-union?
It's about roughly half and half, 600 and 600 roughly.
Okay, so the
So
unions
like a
are
total, the total employee base is somewhere like 1,250, 1,300.
getting- So in this case, the unions are getting a much smaller raise.
Yeah.
Well, but this is dollars.
I'm going
This
along
is
with
dollars.
Mr. Sturgis.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure this out too.
No,
I don't want anybody shortchanged.
With Mr. Sturgis's rule of thumb, that we're worried that the unions are getting higher raises than non-union. It
And-
looks like not.
And I will say this, if you look at the report that I put together, which is being resent, there are some departments, I'm talking non-union, there are some departments that have much higher salary increases percentage-wise for their non-union employees than other departments.
Obviously.
Yeah.
By these numbers.
Yeah, just, it seems that my notion is a fallacy. But again, without any data, there's no chart, there's no spreadsheet, there's no log for me to look at. Yeah, my goal is to make sure that, and Bill, and Mike, historically, just 2.5 seems like a lower number than we've had in the past. And so I just want to make sure that we're not shortchanging anybody, as we go along. But now at face value, we're sort of saying, actually, it's the inverse of that. And then Ed Vern had kind of mentioned a little bit, between the internal equity study and the adjustments that were made there, this is just such a unique year that, I would sit down with Jamie and suggest that, if an employee or a class of employees took a huge jump because of the equity study, is that 2.5% still needed for that class group? Or are we just saying, oh, absolutely, it's 2.5 across the board? So I just don't have that data. I'm not,
Well, you should, I believe my staff person, if you have your computer, she re-forwarded that. I will say this, the equity study increases in 2024 probably are going to, you can't compare, I think you can't compare the information from one department to another department. Because you have some departments that employees, a huge percentage of the employees got equity increases, and you have some departments that they didn't get a
Exactly
lot
what I'm
of
saying.
equity increases at all.
I'm happy to take
So-
this offline and work with Kathy.
Right,
to
so
satisfy myself.
I think you kind of have to look at a cost of living. And this is where I know you can kind of get into the minutia where we've talked about there's cost of living, there's merit increases, there's equity increases, like all different types of increases. I mean, one of the things that the county had wanted to do last year, but couldn't in this year for 2025, but because of budget constraints, can't do right now, at least for non-elected offices, is a merit pool. And I know I've had a lot of departments come to me and ask for merit pool because cost of living, everybody in your department gets the same cost of living. And we don't have enough money in the 2024 budget, nor the 2025 in the general fund anyway. In other funds, we do. But then you get into the whole issue of if you're an employee of the county and you just happen to be born on the right side of the street and you work for a department that's funded out of one type of tax revenue, do you get a raise? And some other employee who works in a different department and just based on the revenue stream, you don't get a raise, which seems silly to me. I know that merit increases is something that a lot of departments wish they had access to, or merit increases in their budget. The elected officials with this resolution, which is the second year in a row that this resolution has been written in this particular way to address the concerns of elected official offices, they can distribute this cost of living increase in any manner that they choose.
One point and then a request. I think the point is with respect to the non-union people, between the equity increases and merit raises, that's most likely the majority of the difference between the non-union and union people for 25.
It's, I mean, if you, I don't think you can just look at it and just make an overarching, comparison between union and non-union, because some of the union contracts built in equity increases as well. Some of them did over the last couple of years, in addition to their percentage increases. So there's been equity adjustments in some of those union contracts. And again, some of the employees in the county got equity adjustments. This resolution is about a cost of living increase. It's not about equity and it's not about merit. It's just cost of living.
And as Mr. Sturgis said, he can go offline with you on this, so that's not a problem. But the other point I'd like to make is we need to make a correction to the ordinance. And I'm moving that we amend in the ordinance, every area where we have the word ordained or resolved to ordained.
Do I have a second to that?
Tepio second.
Deputy, second discussion?
Can I just, I mean, this historically, this is maybe a question for the state's attorney's office, and my bad that I didn't ask this sooner. But historically, this resolution that it's part of the budget process is an ordinance instead of a resolution. And I'm just wondering, does it even need to be an ordinance?
Yeah, county code.
Sorry, at one point, this was referred to as a suggestion. If it's an ordinance, it really isn't a suggestion. If it's an ordinance, it needs to be therefore be it ordained. If it's a resolution, it can be therefore be it resolved. I defer to Mr. Frank on whether it needs to be one or the other.
Yeah, so this would be a wonderful question to come up if we would have been given the opportunity to review this beforehand. So I believe that's somewhat correct. I think when you're talking about a resolution, it's the will of the board. Executive directors do have under, I think, 240, I can't remember the exact one, but they have some independence as it relates to this. It's not quite internal control, but it is some independence. So if I remember this correctly from last year, the reason we did an ordinance is that it's compelling the executive directors to do it. That same vein, you cannot compel an elected to give that exact 2.5% increase, but you can give them the funds to do so accordingly. So if I remember this correctly, then it's that. But what I'll do is I'll have somebody take a quick look at it, and before it gets to executive, we'll have more of a direct opinion on it.
Yeah, it's always been an ordinance, so consistency is always a good thing.
You still amend it and you can change it. Yeah.
Yeah, I still stick with my motion to amend it.
We still have a second, so we're still in discussion. Any other discussion? Let's vote on the amendment then to change it from resolution. Resolution to ordinance.
It's ordinance already. We're just changing the wording in the ordinance from resolved to ordained.
Resolved to
Ordained,
Right.
yes.
You can
We
do a
understand.
voice vote.
We can do that with a voice vote.
Voice vote.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So be it. So it's amended. Any further discussion on the resolution itself? No, I think we. I shouldn't. That's it.
The ordinance.
The ordinance.
Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Except yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Moving on. Item C. An ordinance adopting the fiscal year 2025 annual appropriation and budget. We have a motion to approve.
Lewis moves.
Lewis. Hubie. Discussion. Any questions? Any? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Except yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Thank you. And item D is a resolution approving the fiscal year 2025 draft budget to be placed on public.
Lewis moves.
Leonard
Leonard
seconds.
second discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Except yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Very good. Moving on. Contracts and resolutions. Contracts and purchases. A is a resolution authorizing the intergovernmental agreement with Mason County for juvenile detention services, $175 a day.
Leonard moves.
Leonard,
Lewis
Ju-
seconds.
Lewis, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Except yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. B is a resolution authorizing the contract for building maintenance, building management, snow plowing services with Winter Services LLC, bid number 24-039-TK, $250,000.
Juby moves.
Juby,
Lewis seconds.
Lewis, discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Except yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Thank you. C is a resolution approving fiscal year 25 operations and maintenance agreement with USGS for the stream and rainfall gauges, $74,060.
Juby moves.
Juby,
Leonard seconds.
discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Surges, Tepe,
Except yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman, yes. D is a resolution authorizing expenditure of funds for HVAC maintenance, repairs, supplies, and equipment with Train US Incorporated through Omnia for the Building Management Department, $12,223,000.
Juby moves.
Juby,
Lewis seconds.
Lewis, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. E is a resolution authorizing the purchase of body scanners for the Juvenile Justice Center from $285,000.
Leonard moves.
Leonard,
Juby seconds.
Julie, discussion,
I have
Mr.
just a
Chair.
question.
Lewis?
I saw Mr. Davis is in the audience. So does this mean that we're going to be able to body scan all of our incoming?
Correct. That's the plan. We would like to purchase two, one for our intake area and one for the front lobby so we can screen visitors.
Okay, perfect. Just, that's kind of what I thought, but I want to make sure. Thank you.
Pepe?
Yes, I was on the, also on the, Justice Committee, and I'm concerned about the cost of this and the reason that we have to do it. So reluctantly, I'm going to vote for this, but I certainly think it's disturbing that we have to go to this extent with this kind of cost, even though it's appropriate for protecting our personnel. So I had to put my 2 cents in there. Sorry.
I understand completely, sir. I know it's a tough time to ask, but as all the reasons I stated during the judicial and public safety meeting, it is necessary.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
it's also protecting our kids, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Our kids and our employees.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Under other, we have a resolution authorizing the submission to the electors of the County of Kane by referendum on April 1st, 2025, consolidated election ballot, the question of imposing a 0.75% special county retailers occupational tax for public safety purposes. Do I have a motion?
Juby moves.
Juby moves.
Leonard seconds.
Leonard second. Discussion. Ms. Hopkinson, Mr. Tepe.
Just if anyone had any questions.
Okay. Mr. Tepe?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's Happy here. I'm concerned that we're doing this at a 0.75%. I think we need to do it at 1%. And my reasons are as follows. A 0.75% is going to give us somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 million a year.
51 million.
Somewhere in the
51 million.
neighborhood of $40 million a year in revenue. The 1% would give us about 65 million. Numbers might be a little bit off, but Mr. Leonard, correct me if I if I get it there. And my concern is, this year we actually started out with a $35 million budget deficit. And we've been able to reduce that to about 21 million by utilizing ARPA funds to a large extent, plus by reallocating a couple of items. Next year, our budget deficit is going to be 40 million. And so we're talking about a sales tax increase. If it stays at 0.75%, a sales tax increase that is not going to be able to not only finance the county, but we also need new buildings. We do not have a building fund. And we just invested some decent amount of funds looking at all of the things we need. And two of the glowing things that were recommended was that we desperately need space at the Justice Center, and we desperately need a new building here. Those two things are going to cost in the neighborhood of $250 million. We have to start planning in advance. I mean, that's the job of this board, is to plan in advance. So I would like to move that we increase.
Point of order. I'm so sorry. We've already passed this. We passed this at a previous finance committee. This should have been forwarded. No?
Yes.
This is going to be presented to the executive committee and then presented to the
voting on
board.
it.
And that's the time for you to have this argument as to whether it should be set
This was
0.75 or.
Yeah, SAO Frank, this can't.
Right, but we have an item on the agenda and it can always be reconsidered when
So-
it's on the
I'm
agenda.
sorry, hold on.
Mr. Tepe, with all due respect, this is not a motion to reconsider.
Motion to reconsider would have to have been made at the same meeting at which it was passed.
We're not,
And it was not passed?
No, it was passed.
It was passed,
Yeah.
yes, right.
Darn.
Yeah, SAO Frank,
Yeah.
the only thing that
Yeah.
you can
Could be
do,
amended at a subsequent, at a subsequent meeting where it's properly on the agenda. But
Correct.
this actually should not have been on the agenda.
So this should not have been on the agenda?
It was passed at, I believe, at the special meeting, the
And we
previous
still have to
special
move-
meeting.
so SAO Frank, so the issue is, my understanding is that this exact resolution, it was originally one, but you amended it down to 0.75. So essentially, this exact resolution was in fact already passed. So if you were to do it today, you would be effectively trying to repass something that's already passed. So that's a motion to reconsider, which can't be done at a different time. So it has to go up to executive, or on the agenda, you would have had to change it to bring up something different.
So why are we voting on it?
We shouldn't,
Well, we're not.
we should not be.
I
Idea.
think there was confusion because we asked this question too. I think there was confusion as to whether the special finance committee meetings that had been occurring outside the regular monthly finance committee were the same.
yes, they are.
SAO Frank, was this asked of my office?
Probably not. The best thing for us to table this, so
Oh, no.
Don't
we shouldn't
table it.
table
On
it.
the agenda.
It goes direct to executive.
so.
We don't have to vote or anything.
We've already
withdraw
passed it.
our Motion and second, and then we'll just ignore it.
Sure.
Never mind.
Yep.
It should reflect that it was on the agenda
Well, I got to rehearse my speech.
erroneous.
Moving on. Item B. Resolution authorizing the Finance Committee workflow to adhere to the Kane County Code 2-48. Have a motion to approve?
To
Could
be
somebody
moved.
explain this to me?
I don't know. what-
This is, we've been talking
Second it
about,
first. Second it first. I moved it. You second it, then she can explain what it is.
Okay, I'll second.
so I believe maybe 4 months ago, the question came up at the finance committee as to why I think the way that the question came up is why does the transportation department's purchases not flow through the finance committee? Whereas every other county office and department's purchases go to their home committee, then finance and executive. We worked with the state's attorney's office in looking at the county code. If a department or office's purchase is within the approved budget, there is no reason for that purchase to come to the finance committee. It should go directly from the home committee to the executive committee. So this resolution is basically stating that the finance committee should adhere to the county code, which the county code that says that unless your purchase is exceeding budget, or unless you're transferring money within your office or department that somehow is going to exceed the budgetary guidelines, you do not have to take that purchase through to the finance committee. So for example, on today's agenda, under contracts and purchases, all 5 of those resolutions wouldn't come here next month.
Would certainly cut down the roll call
Yes.
from our meeting, and actually, we're approving something that's already been budgeted. So that's, I think it's significant. Yes, John.
SEO Frank, I would actually join in with the finance director. This is something you really should consider. It will allow you to focus on non-budgeted items as well as the annual budget, rather than having 50 resolutions that are more or less boilerplate because they're already budgeted for.
Took us a long time to get to this point. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
I.
Lewis,
Yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. I don't know why I'm so excited about.
Less work.
Oh, boy. All right. Item C, a resolution authorizing updated capital projects for the capital fund of $10,553,124. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Juby,
Leonard seconds.
Leonard. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis, Surges,
Yes.
Pepe,
Steffi, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Grimmett.
Aaron, yes. Thank you. D is an ordinance. Increasing the GIS fee from $26 to $48.
Juby moves.
Juby moves.
Steffi, second.
Happy second discussion.
Be it ordained.
Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis, Surges,
Yes.
Pepe,
Steffi, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Urban, yes. Thank you. E is a resolution approving the county board personal expense voucher reimbursement request for $3,446.86.
Mr. Chair, Surges,
Yes.
I have a generic question on items E, F, and G. And this is just for personal edification, but do these items usually come directly here first?
Yeah, they usually do. They should.
To the finance committee?
Yes. Do they have an origin? Is this where they come through? Okay. So somebody had mentioned to me that they're supposed to come through a different committee, blah, 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 blah. And I said, I don't know that.
Yes. Mr.
I believe they're supposed to go now through the auditor's department.
Yeah.
No.
Workflow.
So
Wegman?
they do come to finance committee first. The background is that they would come to my office for review prior to them being voted on by the board.
I,
So in other words, they go to you first for review, then come here for vote.
Um, so they can be submitted to the agenda at the same time they're submitted to my office, provided that we have knowledge that there's PEVs that are going to be on the agenda. We're not trying to stand in the way of the speedy process. So there's no restriction that it comes to my office before it comes to the agenda.
You know, I thought part of the reason behind this was a lot of times we pass things where the numbers are inaccurate and then you get it and you go, hold it. We've got to correct it. So I thought the idea was to change steps on that so that you could review it first, just to make sure everything's accurate, and then we vote on it.
That was the ideal situation. My authority allows me to review. It does not allow me to restrict any process of the PEV. So in an ideal world, we would have received this information prior to it going to the agenda, certainly before Monday morning when the agenda was visible. But my goal is to give you enough information to make a decision, whether that be through an email, such as everybody received yesterday, or some other form of communication. But at this point, it's been through email.
So have these been reviewed by you?
We did review them. One of them was quite messy, so it took us a significant amount of time. But as of yesterday at 3:30, I believe when you received the email, we had completed our review.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry for the delay.
so I have a question. Does, Mr. Chair, does, because you have made a suggestion to one of the PEVs, do we need to discuss that? Because she's, after her review, she has offered us a different dollar amount than what was submitted. I don't understand the process for that. So the auditor reviewed all three, and one of the PEVs, she came up with a suggested PEV with current information amount that differs from what the original PEV was. And as the person who's not in the room for that, I don't know how we handle that.
What was Ms. Juby's referring to as a email from Ms. Wegman. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read it, devour it. John?
Mr. Berman, if you allow me to respond to Ms. Juby, I can give a quick answer for her.
What was that?
Do you mind if I respond directly to the, Ms. Juby?
Okay, yes, fine, please.
If you make a motion to amend, that would allow this to be fixed. But obviously, knowing Ms. Gums is not here, but if she's okay with it and anyone knows that, a simple motion to amend would allow this to all be rectified.
Is she online?
With my, with my hand up even.
Ms. Gums.
Mr. Chair Gums.
Ms. Gums.
Thank you very much. Just obviously, we're talking about my PEV here. So as I understand it, the auditor's office did not get my PEV in July. I sent it to, in July, I think it was the 29th of July. And as I understand it, she didn't get it, their office didn't get it until Monday. So in the background, we normally have them check to make sure our math is good. Sometimes my math isn't good. I'm absolutely fine with this suggestion. That's why we have an auditor, and I'm proud that she did this.
So I'd like to make a motion to amend the original PEV for Michelle Gums from $3,446.86 to $3,154.86 to
Which
the
item
changes.
is this, Ms. Juby?
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
SEO Frank, just say and
It's-
make adjustments accordingly to account for this in the next version.
Yeah, okay.
Let's just do that.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair, I think before can have an amendment, we have to have a motion. I don't think we
I
have.
thought we had a motion. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think we have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we don't.
My bad. I make a motion.
Yes.
I'll second.
Right, well, you need a motion to start with of item E.
Item E.
Right.
Approve County Board Personal Expense Voucher Reimbursement Request for $3,446.86.
So moved.
So
Motion is made.
Yeah.
And
No, you
amended.
wanna amend it.
Make a motion to amend per,
Yeah, we had this first and second.
Oh, okay, Leonard. And now you're proposing an amendment.
a motion to amend the PEV amount according to the county auditor's changes. Did I need to say what those are or not?
Yes.
Okay. So we would be changing from $3,446.86 to $3,154.86.
That's the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second.
You can voice vote that if there's no.
All right, all those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
I've been made aware of a resolution number 20-98 governing the expense reimbursement for county board members. And it limits it to $750 per board member. And so that's a resolution that was passed at that point in time.
When was that passed, you know?
2098. So it was March 10th, 2020. Which is sort of interesting. So that we have been ignoring that or not aware of that all these years.
If I may.
Yes, Mr.
And again, Bill and Mike and Anita may need to help, and Vern also. At the time we did that, was that a $750 suggested maximum? But there was a pool of money and it was kind of a first come, first serve type of deal. I don't know that that was a hard, and I could be totally wrong. But was it a hard number not to exceed this amount per person? Or was that a suggested guideline in a pool of money? Because back then, we weren't even using this.
May I read an
Yes.
excerpt? Shepro. The resolution adopted reads, now therefore be it resolved that the Kane County Board, that the maximum annual allowable reimbursement amount for professional and continuing education, e.g. conferences, training programs, and seminars, and for meetings and events attended for the purpose of conducting board business, be limited to $750 per board member and shall be granted on a first come, first served basis until the total annual appropriation for the line item is expended. So yes, it is a personal limit, but it's also a first come, first served.
I want brownie points then for being halfway correct.
No,
Yeah.
you're totally. So if the line item were exhausted before somebody got their 750,
Yeah.
they wouldn't get the 750 as drafted, and adopted.
So I'd like to ask the state's attorney, either Mr. Shepro or Mr. Franks, how do we handle this? How can we amend it or change it for this particular instance?
So a resolution is simply the will of the board, and if the will of the board changes, changes. So you can either choose to comply with your own resolution, or you can choose to, in particular instances, as I believe you've basically been doing for 4 years, to deviate from that. If this were an ordinance, that would be different. But with it simply being a resolution, you can choose to pass it as amended, or you could reduce it accordingly, however you would prefer.
Also, it is arguable that the way that the resolution is drafted as it was intended to apply to the 2020 budget.
So then again, I guess my request to the state's attorney's office is, obviously this employee, and none of us were really aware of that limit when this employee went on this trip and incurred these expenses. So I don't think this employee should necessarily be punished for it. I think we as a board as a whole, we're all at fault because no one, brought it up until Mr. Berman and Mr. Surges did today. So I would like to get this passed on a one-time situation. And then if it happens again, I think the county board office and the finance office and the auditor, who are now all aware of that, should point out, maybe each and every year that we do have a maximum limit of 750, so we don't go down this road again.
I think though, if I may, if Mr. Shepro was State's Attorney Shepro was suggesting that what was passed for the 750 language was isolated to a single year, that's a correction that needs to be made. Either that's good for totality or.
Yeah, my suggestion would be, as I understand it, this came up at a previous meeting. And there were questions raised by board members about, among other things, is the number even realistic? I think somebody said you couldn't even get a hotel room for that length of time. But I believe, and I'll defer to Mr. Frank, is that I think it could be suggested that by the time of the executive committee, if there were determined to be a need for clarification or other action, that could be brought to the executive committee agenda.
So even if it was viewed more broadly as beyond 2020, it still comes down to the board's prerogative. If the board wants to deviate from its own policy, it absolutely has that right. There's also completely a side argument of whether or not a prior board can even influence you on this type of a thing. So setting all of that aside, you all have to decide at the end of the day, the answer is you decide whether you want to comply with your own policy here or not. The only way you can compel yourselves or subsequent boards is to make this an ordinance. So if you want to make a firm policy going forward, it would be required to be at least an ordinance to bind your own hands.
Too restrictive.
Of course, is not on the agenda for
Right.
today.
Happy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a problem with all three of these expenses. And my problem is as follows. We're all elected independently, and I certainly don't want to be in a position of saying to any fellow board member, this is not appropriate. But at the same time, we're talking about thousands of dollars here on a situation where there was no approval for that event or for that process whatsoever. We have no approval process. So if I, as a board member, decided that it was in the best interest to go and do something, and I did a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 expenditure every month, I could do that. I think that's just inappropriate. And I will be voting against all of these, just on the basis of the fact that I don't think we have a process in place that really makes sense. Thank you.
Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I think all we need to do today is move this forward to the executive committee and then let them vote on it. The amendment was for the revised amount on this particular one for $3,154.86. I'm willing to move that forward, and that's all we're doing. So I'd like to call the vote if we could.
Ms. Lewis.
Yeah, so I believe that this was discussed when we were talking about the county board budget. And I believe at that time, all this, got brought up about the last resolution and all that. And I believe Madam Chair had assigned a couple individuals to go through and look at this and decide if it wanted to be a resolution or an ordinance. So because we are where we're at, I'll be voting yes on this one.
You're Surges.
I apologize. I have a Comcast outage at an office with a Comcast rep coming out. I think this is heat related. I'm going to call in for the balance of the meeting if you'll allow me to. But on this particular vote, should I be in travel, I am not interested in penalizing anybody backwards, but let's get our act together going forward. Thank you.
Call the vote.
Just call for the vote.
I agree. And Ms. Lewis, you're accurate in saying we really need something.
You're voting
for
yes in
guidelines.
advance.
We don't have that.
Yep.
And so we're sort of at the mercy of everyone and what they really want at this point in time. So I would like to call the question. Any other discussion? Let's vote on the amended resolution.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Surges, Tepe,
No.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes with 1 no.
Item F is a resolution approving county board personal expense voucher reimbursement request of $342.23.
Juby moves.
Judy moves.
Leonard seconds.
Second discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis abstain.
Oh, yes.
Surges left. Tepe,
Deputy no.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes with 1 no and 1 abstain.
Thank you. G is a resolution approving county board personal expense voucher reimbursement request of $299.37.
Juby moves.
Juby,
Leonard seconds.
discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Lewis.
Lewis, yes.
Do you sign on yet? No, okay. Tepe,
Deputy no.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes with 1 no.
Thank you. Any old business to come before us? I have none. Reports placed on file.
Oh, the guy in.
Motion.
Skip executive session.
Give me my green.
Stop.
Somebody should just ask.
I request unanimous approval to put the reports on file.
Unanimous approval.
Unanimous approval?
Yes.
Any
Unanimous consent.
unanimous consent? So, reports will be placed on file by unanimous consent. Committee chairman's comments.
Wait, all in favor? Aye.
We're early today. Executive session is needed? No. Motion for adjournment.
Move that we adjourn.
Leonard
Not early.
moves. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.